Hello, chaps and chapesses. Good afternoon. Welcome to this slightly cool and mizzly Tuesday afternoon. This afternoon, we're going to talk about the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. Um, it is probably one of the most staple saltwater destinations on the planet, and actually was probably one of the first to be developed after Florida Keys. Mexico is an easy hop for a lot of people who got used to saltwater fishing and became a very popular destination in the late 60s, 70s, and early 80s, and since then has grown massively into the saltwater destination that it is today. From our perspective here in the UK, and certainly in Europe, Mexico has always been a fantastic first time saltwater destination. And the main reason for that is it's one of the few places where you will automatically come into contact with all of the major species that you come into contact with on the flat. So you have bonefish, you have tarpon, you have permit, you have jacks, you have barracuda. And because of the lagoon system in the Cyan-Kahn biosphere, which I'll come on to in a bit, it's a great nursery area. There's a huge amount of fish constantly coming in and out from the ocean as well. And it's just a wonderful place for people who haven't done a lot of saltwater fishing or have never done any. It's a really good place for them to come into contact with these species, get a feel for the environments that they're fishing in. A lot of people are not used to, being in mangroves and casting under overhanging bits and pieces, and it's a great learning area. And because of the fact that that long strip of land, certainly down towards the Cyan-Kahn, protects a lot of the lagoon system, it's quite sheltered, and it's nothing too strenuous or too extreme, I suppose. One of the other reasons that it is particularly good is, certainly from our perspective, actually from the US as well, it's extremely accessible. It's very easy to get at, whether you are bouncing down from one of the US hubs, or it's one of the few destinations from here in the UK that we can reach with a direct flight straight into Cancun. So there's very little messing around. You can fly straight in. Some of the operations you can then go straight down to, and you can get to in one day. There's not many saltwater destinations that we can do that from here in the UK and from Europe. So that makes it particularly attractive to us, because if you are trying to compact your fly fishing trip into as fewer days as possible, say, for example, you have work constraints or family constraints, this is one way of making that happen, so you don't have any days bouncing around on either side. And I think the next thing that makes it particularly attractive is the huge variety of different operations that are now available in the Yucatan. And I mean, when I'm talking about Mexico, we're predominantly talking East Coast, Caribbean. We're not talking West Coast. We're talking the Yucatan area, and mainly about flats destinations. A discussion of the West Coast is probably a completely different video to talk about. So we'll leave that for another day. From your main hub of Cancun that you fly into, which is changed a lot in the last 25 years from when I think I first went in there. It has grown immensely. It is very cosmopolitan. The hotel strip is something you'd find in Miami. But as soon as you get north or south and you are back into proper Mexican countryside, and from the northern coast, you are looking at destinations like Campeche, Isla Holbox, Isla Mujeres, and those destinations, especially Campeche and Holbox, they're quite tarpon focused. There's a lot of baby tarpon up there, big lagoon systems, which are accessed from a number of different fishing operations in both Campeche and Isla Holbox is really a different kind of kettle of fish, if you'll forgive the pun. But your main focus is going to be tarpon fishing if you're going to go north. And the tarpon fishing can be phenomenal. It's mostly babies, mostly, anything from 5 to 40 pounds. But at the right times of year, as you move into the migratory tarpon season, from really the back end of April, May time, right the way through hurricane season, that's when you get migratory tarpon showing up on the coast. And some of those are really big, 100-pound plus fish. And it is one of the few areas where you can access them as they migrate north up to up around the Gulf and heading up towards Florida. So it is one of the few places where you can intercept big tarpon. And then as you come down the coastline, I suppose the main area is around Punta Allen, pushing down into Ascension Bay, Espiritu Santo Bay, and then all the way down to Xcalak. And those different environments, there's a huge amount of area, lagoon flats to explore. Everything from the Sian Khan, which is massive. It's 5,280 square kilometers in size. It's a UNESCO heritage site and sort of kicks off just below Tulum. And that whole lagoon system going all the way down to Punta Allen, there's 5, 6, 7, 8 lodges operating down there now. And you are going to get a huge variety of fishing. You will have bone fishing in the lagoon side. You will have bonefish on the ocean side. Then you have a great quantity of permit. And Punta Allen, I suppose, is one of those areas which is particularly famous for permits. So even if you are going with mixed ability anglers, there's going to be something for everybody, even up to the complete hardcore sort of permit focused lunatics who are quite happy to stand on the front of a skiff and just chase permit for an entire week. There's everything to offer there. And then moving down into Espiritu Santo, then you're down into Casablanca and Playa Blanca. Moving further down to Playa Blanca, then fishes down into Espiritu Santo, and then down into Xcalak, and almost down to the Belizean border, which is actually coming up from Ambergris Key on the other side. And you have Chatmal Bay at the bottom, and there's a huge variety of fishing. And it's quite a long way down to there, but you can certainly be rewarded by the fact that it probably doesn't get as much footfall or traffic. So there's a lot of different things to explore. I think also Mexico is quite an affordable destination. It has definitely always been one where if you're venturing and tiptoeing into saltwater for the first time, then it's very appealing because the pricing is much probably it's a bit lower than other areas of the world. And there's also a tiered rate system. So if you go at different times of the year, for example, if you go in the summer months, you can get a real bargain because they do have a tiered system. Yes, it is hurricane season, but Mexico is normally been pretty stable from that side of things. And it's also when the big tarpon are running. But it's I fished in Mexico a number of times during midsummer in August. And yeah, you might get a downpour of rain, maybe an hour, tropical downpour. But other than that, I mean, it's warm. It's quite hot actually, and the fishing can be very, very good. And it's quiet because most people are not traveling down there at that time of year. But it can be extremely affordable. So that's definitely worth something to take into consideration. As I mentioned, it is one of those areas which is renowned for permit. Punta Allen is sort of nicknamed the permit capital of the world. And for those who have that very sad affliction, I'm very sorry. It does get under your skin. But if you are afflicted with permit fever, then Mexico has an appeal all of its own. And I think one of the cool things I like about the Yucatan is that you can fish on both the ocean side and the lagoon side. So dictating by conditions and as to what's going on with tides and moon phases, then you can either pole around the outside of the lagoon system, which has got crystal clear water, or you can go and find the permit cruising around on the inside of the lagoon looking for a meal. And that diversity and different environments certainly will give you good chances and good shots at permit, but also its numbers. I mean, at the end of the day, permit fishing boils down to numbers. It boils down to numbers of shots, and that is what I think Mexico offers, more than quite a lot of other destinations. So if you are after your permit and you are a permit fiend, then definitely Mexico should be on your list. It's also one of the few destinations where it is definitely possible to get a grand slam. And by a grand slam, I mean to catch bonefish, permit, tarpon, all in one day. And if you throw a snook in there, which they also have, then there's a chance of a super slam. And that can happen. It's one of the few places where you can really target a slam, which is quite exciting. It's got a very stable climate. I did mention that before. So it's tucked a little bit further back, and the climate is nice and warm all the year round. It doesn't really get those cold fronts during wintertime, so it's quite a good destination for some winter sun. And being the Yucatan, and being the fact that it is culturally diverse with the various Mayan temples of Chichen Itza and Tulum and many others, some which you'll only find on a flat skiff. It offers an awful lot for those people who are looking to combine some fishing with also maybe a family holiday, or to take their other half away, or to do both. Maybe do the fishing first and then meet up with them in Cancun, or you can head out to Isla Mujeres, or you can head out to Cozumel Island, and there's some beautiful hotels on there. In fact, I think I took my honeymoon in Mexico. So, although granted, that was somewhat of a long time ago, but I really enjoyed it, cruising around. Checked out the big pyramids at Chichen Itza, and it's a fascinating area and very friendly. Tourism is a major part of their economy, and it's a very friendly place to visit. As I said, it's been around a long time on the saltwater scene. It is one of those, I certainly cut my teeth in Mexico, Mexico and Belize, and that's where I spent a lot of my formative years saltwater fishing, and becoming the completely sort of obsessed creature that sadly I now am. But because of that, a lot of those operations have been running a very long time. Their guides have been around a very long time. They have a huge depth of knowledge, which they are very willing to share to fishermen. And you will learn a lot, and you will be in extremely good hands. So that's one of the things, and they're very friendly. And I think it's a nice... It's quite important. There are some areas of the world where maybe guides are less tolerant of beginners' mistakes, but Mexico definitely is not one of them. So one of the things that we're always asked is, what kind of gear do I need? And for the Yucatan, one thing I should mention, a little while ago, the Mexican authorities brought in a law about bringing in more than 4 sets of kit in case you are going to resell it. So don't bring in more than 4 sets of kit, or otherwise you'll have to pay tax on the other ones that you're bringing in. And some people have sadly learnt that the hard way. So keep that in mind. But I mean, for bonefish, the bonefish are not massive in Mexico. I think a 5-pound fish is a specimen. Most of them are probably, certainly in the lagoon system, probably going to be 1.5 to 2. And even small fish like that will pull a lot of line off, but make sure you tackle down to them. So, 6, 7 weights, something like that, is probably more than sufficient to have a lot of fun with those smaller fish. Permit, generally speaking, I'd be using a 9 weight. You never know when you're going to bump into quite a big permit, and also they're very powerful fish. And the last thing you want to do is be undergunned and perhaps get pinged off on a sort of sharp mangrove route. So 9 weight for that. For the tarpon, most of the tarpon down there are not massive unless you're traveling during migratory season. So a 10 weight is probably going to be more than sufficient. And all of your standard kind of fly patterns, for saltwater fishing are going to work. So, for bonefish, your sort of gotchas and your bitters and all of the standard patterns that we like so much, brown crazy charlies. Um, I wouldn't go any sort of further than that. Crab patterns, sort of turnip crabs and creole crabs, raghead crabs. And we've had a number of clients who've been extremely successful with the flexo crabs, which have been so good in the Seychelles. You can now get those in tan, and they work very well in Mexico and Belize for permit. Tarpon wise, traditional patterns, cockroach patterns, that kind of thing, streamer patterns, basically bait fish, and the same for the snook. Although I've found that some orange patterns have worked extremely well for snook, along with white flashy bait fish patterns. I remember coming up to Mexico one year, which I'd been in Belize, and we'd had to come out because there was an evacuation for a hurricane, because it was in the middle of summer, but it didn't actually come through. So we bounced up to Miami and then back down to Mexico, and ended up fishing Isla Blanca on the north coast for most of the week, actually. But my brother and I had one day where the tide had pushed a lot of those tarpon and baby snook out, and I think we had about 30, which was absolutely incredible fishing, but pretty much all on these little white streamer flies. Nothing too massive, but they can be highly, highly effective, and just floating lines. In terms of wading and skiff fishing, the majority of it is skiff fishing. The marl, it's mostly marley bottom, unless you're around the ocean side. So in terms of flats boots, you probably get away with the wetsuit booty kind, unless you're going to spend more time on the ocean side, in which case you definitely need boots which are capable of dealing with coral. Other than that, just your standard fly packs. You're mostly in a boat, so a boat bag is fine. You don't need a backpack; it's totally unnecessary. And you'll have a cooler full of drinks, and your guide will take care of you from that aspect. So you don't need to worry about too much kit or making it overly complicated, which is another reason why it's so good for first-time saltwater fishermen. I think that probably covers most of the major points of why we find Mexico to be so incredibly popular amongst a lot of our fishermen. We send quite a few to Mexico on a yearly basis. But if you have any questions or queries, or you want to learn more about Mexico, then please don't hesitate to get into contact. We'd be delighted to help. Just touch base with us in the office on 01980 847 389, or mail me at peter@aardvarkmcleod.com. And I'll look forward to catching up with you. I hope this was use, and look forward to catching you up on the next one. Thanks a lot.